Welcome to Ask the Tech Coach, brought to you by the TeacherCast Educational Network. If you are in charge of professional development and looking to build an innovative digital learning experience, this is the podcast for you. Join us each week as we uncover strategies that tech coaches are using to drive their digital transformations one classroom at a time. And now for your host, with over 2 decades of experience working with tech coaches and ed tech companies from all around the world, Jeff Bradbury.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is Ask the Tech Coach podcast, episode number 191. Today, we're going to be talking about the 5 conversations that every instructional coach should be having before the summertime hits. That's right. We started off this entire school year talking about conversations that you should have before the school year starts. And today we're going to be wrapping up that conversation ourselves by talking about things that you should be doing, people you should be meeting with, conversations you should be setting up, and most importantly, data points that you should be getting and making sure you have before everybody breaks for the year. It is not that early to be thinking about all that stuff, and it's not that early to be bringing on my co-host for the day, Miss Susan Vincent. Sue, how are you today? Welcome back to Ask the Tech Coach.
Yes, it's been a few weeks. We've had some other types of shows going on, and Jeff has been doing an awesome job handling those. It's been a busy spring, but we're on the downhill slide down here in the southern part of the country down here in Kentucky, and we've only got about 4 weeks left of school.
I know. We're sitting here going like 30 some more days left, a few weeks left. They're doing, instrument demonstrations for my second graders and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff coming around here. Don't forget, we have our free Instructional Coaches Network. We are almost at 500 coaches right now on our Facebook group, and would love to have you guys be a part of all that. Doesn't matter if you're a tech coach, math coach, reading coach. Heck, you can even be an acting coach. We would love to have you. Head on over to AskTheTechCoach.com. Check it out. Lots of great stuff over there. And, one of the other things you can mention, Sue, is that we've got an amazing instructional coaches blog. And the other day we had a few coaches reach out and say, how can we contribute to this? And the best way that I can respond is just reach out. We would love to have you guys collaborate, just like we would love to have you as a co-host on the show. A few weeks ago, Sue, we had some friends on to talk all about, coaching jobs, coaching resumes, coaching interviews, how to become an administrator. I would love to invite everybody who's listening onto this show and have you guys share your experiences, share your passions about instructional coaching. So if you're interested, please let us know. We're currently booking some shows for the summertime and would love to have you guys on as we go through here. But Sue, what's on your plate right now? Tech Imaginations is still going strong?
Going strong, recording YouTube videos, lots of new stuff coming out from Google Classroom and Google Calendar. So
I saw that.
Yeah, appointment schedules. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. Thank you, Google. So head on over to my YouTube channel and hear all about that if you haven't heard it from others already. But just lots going on. Speaking of conversations, which we're getting ready to talk about in a minute, I'm having these same conversations with the various people in my school system. In fact, on this day as we record, I met with our tech director and our IT department, having some of these important conversations as we start to end the school year.
Today, we're going to be looking at these conversations. And, these aren't the only questions that we have, but we've broken down really how we like to end the year into 5 different categories for 5 different types of conversations. Sue, what's the first category that we're going to be discussing today?
Well, it's that coach to principal. So, just like we start out the year having these conversations about planning, we need to meet with the principal or principals that you work the most closely with to start reflecting on the year and figuring out how you can work through the summer to make the next school year better or build upon what you've done.
When we meet with our principals at the beginning of the year, hopefully in the summertime, there's one question that we always suggest you ask. And that question is, what are your goals for the year? What are your building goals? What are your staff goals? What are your curricular goals? Based off of the testing numbers, where do you want to see the building in the next 10 months? So Sue, What's the first question we should be asking our principal?
Well, did we meet those goals that we talked about at the beginning of the year?
Absolutely. How are we doing? Usually by this point in time, your principals have some kind of an idea of where we are. They're seeing numbers coming back from standardized testing. Obviously, you're seeing the results of staff, observations and classroom walkthroughs.
Summative evaluations, yes.
Yeah. And that's not a question that says, did I help you meet your goal? That's just, hey, it's like the principle of how are we doing? Like, are you happy? Where are we right now? That's the general, all of those things. And then the next question is always what, Sue?
Well, how can we use summer to start preparing next year? So taking all that data that we just mentioned from the testing, from the observations, from the collaborative projects, then how can we take all of that learned information and use summer to, again, make things better or build upon what we've done?
And those are the conversations that say, this is what I'm seeing in the classroom level. What are you seeing at the administrator level, at the numbers level? And what can we do? Who can we focus on? Or where can we focus? What grade level can we focus on? And this is the time of year where districts, buildings, principals are starting to change and update their school improvement plans, the SIP, if you will, for next year. And a SIP is basically, or a school improvement plan is basically that document that says, here's where we are, here's what we want to improve on, and here are the action items that we're going to take. And I hope, oh my goodness, Sue, I hope that if there's a coach in a building, that school improvement plan somehow has an action item and a strategy that includes the coach, because if not, here we go again.
Absolutely. And we've had so many conversations about that in recent episodes, all about the roadmap and that strategic plan and all of that. So yes, that SIP should contain that collaborative effort between principal and coach and teacher and student and all the coaches together, working again to meet those goals.
And there's one question here, and I'm not saying these are the only 4 questions you should be asking your principal, but this is the time of year where staff gets shuffled. A 3rd grade teacher becomes a 2nd grade, a 2nd grade teacher retires, a 4th grade teacher leaves the district, a new one's coming in. This is the time of year where I always ask that principal, are there grade levels that we can focus on for next year? This year, yes. Myself, I was in a brand new building, kindergarten through 5th grade. And, after a few weeks, a few months, I started focusing on specific grade levels, specific areas, specific skill sets. I didn't, it's not possible to walk in and say, I'm going to hit every grade, every teacher, every day, every moment. But you have your focus areas. And maybe next year you're going to focus on something different, or you're going to work on improving something about a grade level. So I always ask Sue, where can I be focusing? What can I look at? Because then over the summertime, you can check out that curriculum. You can start figuring out where to help, where to push, how to plan your strategy and stuff like that. And, did we meet your goals? What can we do for the summertime? What are the school improvement goals for next year? And where would you like me to focus? I mean, so that's a pretty good round conversation right there.
Very much. And again, you probably, as a coach, if you're a veteran coach, you're probably starting to have these conversations now in here, April, May. If you're a new coach just starting out and this is your first year, it's time to start asking these questions. And hopefully you can use these show notes right here as a template as you go in and ask for meetings with the principals.
And keep in mind, principals are busy. There's a lot of principals right now that are hair still on fire. This is not necessarily I'd like to make an appointment. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to bring my notebook. We're going to open up the laptop. Like, if you see somebody in the hallway, just say, hey, anything I need to be aware of, or hey, how you doing? Like, if you have 5 minutes in their office, great. Throw one question at them,
Absolutely. And don't feel like you have to phrase it in a big formal manner every time.
Right. And now if you're doing something after the school year is over, hey, can I come back at the end of the year, maybe a week after the teachers are gone, after you breathe a little bit? then can we have our first formal summer meeting? You might not be paid for it. It might be out of the traditional teacher coach contract, but these are all kind of conversations. So Sue, coach to principal need to have those conversations, right? What's the next bucket of conversation here?
So then we need to start our reflection and focus that on the coach to teacher relationship and start reflecting upon those things. So where would we start in having those conversations?
Well, for me, you start with your generals, right? You start with the people who you're close with, right? You start with the people who you've really been in the trenches. And my first question is always, hey, did you enjoy this year? And for those questions here, and especially for these teachers, I'm not asking, what did you enjoy that you and I worked with? These are the general questions like, hey, it's May, it's June. Are you still having fun? What can we do? Or, the one that I'm asking a lot right now is, as the weather's getting warmer, mind if I take the kids off your hands for a little bit, right? What did you enjoy doing this year? They might say to you, I really enjoyed that trip to the zoo we just took. They might say to you, I really enjoyed learning about that Google Slides thing that you showed us, or I really loved learning. They might interpret it as a personal question, but you know what? Mm-hmm. They might have just enjoyed the fact that it was masks off halfway through the year. I mean,
absolutely.
There's so many different answers.
There is, and so general. I mean, they may even tell you they enjoyed Christmas break just because they're tired and it's May right now and they remember that time off, and that's okay. And that's kind of how we are all feeling at this point as May has sprung upon us.
The next question is always an odd one, right? But if you're going to say, what did you enjoy? You kind of have to follow it up with, what did you struggle with? And that's not one that I would say, Sue, what did you struggle? I wouldn't ask it directly, yes. But I'll throw like, hey, like what, just so I'm clear, what were some things that was difficult? I want to make sure that I can help and support you next year. Or what's been a challenge over the last few weeks? Would you like me to come in and take the kids off your hands for a while? Or, right. There's always some way to have a teacher answer the question, what are they having difficulties with?
And again, some of them may take it a little more strongly than others. You're going to have some teachers who will be very reflective and talk about something they're struggling with in technology or in teaching.
Exactly.
But other ones may use it as a vent session or a rant session. And sometimes you just need to lend that ear and just let them rant for a moment.
Exactly. And you just said it. This doesn't have to be a technology or digital learning focused conversation. They might struggle because parents are bothering them. They might struggle because they had a difficult student. They might struggle because they had a difficult observation. A new principal comes in, difficult, interaction, whatever it happens to be. And look, we all know that this year was a struggle for many people. I mean, we started with masks, we started with quarantine, and we're ending, windows open, and here we go. I mean, absolutely. It's the reverse of 2019. Right? Like there's a lot of things in here. And that just kind of, what did you like? What did you struggle with? And that goes on to that next question, And even now I'm having these conversations. Even today, I was working with a 4th grade teacher, and, we're doing this Google Slides thing, and we just had a side conversation. I said, look, these things here, next year, let's focus on these kind of skills in September. Because if we focus on them in September, by January, we're going to be able to do this. And in March and April and May next year, we're really going to be able to kick this thing up a notch. And he goes, yeah. And you could just tell he's starting to think like, okay. And for me, I'm going, it took me till April.
Absolutely.
It took me till April to get that conversation, right? I play the long game with my teachers, right? Like it's not, hey, how you doing? Let's get in there. Like I'm building out for next year right now. I mean, I'm even building out for the following year. So always keeping that, what would you like to do next year? And that's a question you have to frame the right way. So, my suggestion is, hey, what if we tried doing this in September? You see how easy this is. Let's take what you're doing, and instead of waiting till April, let's do it in the first month, and then we'll see where we go. And who knows, right? Who knows what we can do next year?
Absolutely. And I've had similar with our KISTI conference that just happened back in March. I took a teacher who had never been before, who sometimes could be hesitant on using technology tools in their classroom. And she was able to see some information about Nearpod and how it works. And she's one-to-one with Chromebooks and how it can make life easier. So my thing to her is, we're going to try it here at the end of the year at some point here in the next couple of weeks. But I want to do that same exact thing of, okay, what's one of the first science units? And I kind of just use science as an example because that sometimes works well with Nearpod. What's one of the first science units you're teaching? And how can we make this happen in the end of August, September, to get your year started off on a good note?
The last question here I always try to ask or figure out the answer to is, how can I best support you over the summer and into the new school year? And this is going to be similar to the principal question, but if you know that the fourth grade teachers are getting a new science curriculum,
yes.
Okay. Are you getting trained over the summer? Can I come to the training? Now you're starting to see, all right, well, if they're getting a new science, maybe I should go talk to the science curriculum lead. Can I come into the training with them? So that way I can be doing this hands-on. Maybe you're paid, maybe you're not. That's not the point, but you're getting FaceTime and you're starting that relationship in the summertime, not waiting till November when it might be past the time.
Yeah, what an awesome way to develop that rapport is attending things like that with them. Whether it's fully enriched with technology, maybe it is, or maybe not so much, but for you to be there supporting them and participating with them, what a great relationship builder.
So for teachers, we have, what did you enjoy this year? What did you struggle with? What would you like to collaborate on? And how can I best support you in the new school year? We've dealt with principals. We've dealt with teachers. Sue, who else do we have to have a conversation with?
Well, there's always those students, because even though we don't always work directly with students, we're in those classrooms and, we're modeling lessons. So, sometimes it's good to talk to those students and see how they feel about things that you all have done together. So what's one of those first questions that you would see happening there, Jeff?
I like to ask the question, what projects did you like doing this year? And sometimes these conversations with students are good as a group. If I'm going in and I'm modeling something and I'm on a roll and I've got the, students' attention, I just might start with, did you like this? Right? And just blurt out the question,
Yes, I've done that many
what the room is, right? And sometimes I might just go up and go, hey, Sue, are you having fun with this? Do you like this project? And if they say yes, great. If they say no, be prepared. But, how much fun are they having with these things? You might realize that you're doing a fourth grade project that it's kind of easy. And then maybe next year you try it with third grade.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you expand upon it with the fourth graders because, take it a step further.
Mm-hmm. I also like asking people at the end of these projects, how can we do this with something different, right? How do we take this video concept? What else can we do with it in your classroom? Or this Google Slides thing. Hey, how else can we do this animation thing? What other options do you have? And really have them help explain, expand their mind and explain things. Because look, they might be in their homeroom working with you, but they're also in the art room. They're in the music room. They're in the library. They're in the, all these different places. How else can we use these skills? And then you can use that to go have conversations with other adults.
Right. And that kind of segues into that next question is, how can you, asking the student this, take something that you've learned here and use it in the future, whether it be in a different class or whether it be next year or when they go from elementary to middle school, how can they use that skill or that project in the future to expand upon their learning further?
So we have principals, teachers, students, and I think the next two are the most important ones, although I think every one of these is important. What's the next category, Sue?
So the next category is coach to coach.
And this is a biggie, right? This is probably going to happen one-to-one. You talk to your other coaches in the district. This might be something that the administrator of the group asks everybody in a meeting, but there's a lot of things here. And these are questions that I'm asking you as our listeners. What did you learn this year? I mean, again, these are the same types of questions with teachers. What did you learn this year, and what struggles did you have? Mm-hmm. We've said this before. We've said this many times. The first goal, the first job description of a coach is kind of to play that therapist role, right? Like, let's just talk. What struggles did you have? Hey, I had some of those struggles too. How did you fix it? Here's how I fix it. Kumbaya kind of a moment, right? But what did you learn about, and what struggles did you have?
Right. And then that brings us to then how can you support each other? Because typically, like Jeff said, you might be doing this as a team, whether you're a team of tech coaches or you're a combined team of instructional curriculum coaches and tech coaches and what else, what other conglomeration your district puts together, and talking about those struggles and then being able to support each other through the summer with that, whether that be attending professional learning PDs together or just having a retreat time together to plan for the new year, taking even those conversations that you've previously had with the principals and teachers, and then coming together to support each other on how you can help those other groups.
And these are all baseline, right? There's one question here that we have listed under coach to coach that I think is the most important question, right? Because this really humanizes everybody. Sue, what's that last question here that we definitely want to be asking our peers?
Is checking in on themselves as an individual, but also their family or their friends, their people in their personal lives. Not that you're wanting to pry necessarily, but if you're a team and being a cohesive team, it's important to, ask those personal, individual related questions as it relates to their life outside of school. And, that's what I appreciate about the team that I have is we do that on a weekly basis pretty much and keep up with each other and what's going on and, keep each other in thoughts and prayers and all of those things. So we're able to support each other throughout the year and definitely through the summer.
I think just the question of, hey, how are you? I mean, that's one of the questions that I try to get, before it's, Sue, let's talk about the podcast, or Sue, let's talk about this. It's, hey, how you doing? Right? Like, It's like, let's just ground ourselves. And you know what? It's obviously do that to your teachers. Definitely do that to your principals. I mean, the more that you can humanize your conversations, I think the easier life is, right? But it always comes down to, hey, how you doing?
And some of you out there may consider that, oh, that's just small talk. But no, really, to most people, the 99% of the people, the teachers, the other coaches you're going to work with, it means so much to them. They may not show it at the time, but it means so much to hear that, hey, how are you? Because it just gives you kind of that downtime for just a moment to, oh, yeah, you do care about me. I do have a personal life outside of school.
Right. And so those are the important ones. But Sue, there is one more category here. We talked about principals, teachers, students, coaches. What are we missing here?
The coach to the district. So, you still serve that district level. So you do need to reflect upon those things.
And this is the one that you really are looking ahead with. My first question is always, especially around this time, what applications are we keeping? What applications are we not? There's no reason to be, prepping, promoting, sharing, making lesson plans around applications that, hey, your district's no longer paying for.
Absolutely. I had a meeting today, like I said, with our tech department, and it just so happens they pay for our Zoom accounts and they pay for our Screencastify accounts. So that conversation had to happen today of, are you going to still pay for this? If not, then we need to figure out what we're going to do instead. So those conversations have to happen, and sometimes they have to get at a deep level because that tech director, if they're paying for a certain application that you as a tech coach want for the teachers, you have to have those deep conversations of, okay, how are the teachers using this? What are they going to do with it? How is this benefiting the students? So, be ready with that questioning process also.
What's another great question we should be thinking about as we're looking fourth dimensionally into the summertime?
So thinking about new administrators that may be coming on board and how they need to be trained on district applications. So there's so much out there, whatever it may be, your student information system, your learning management systems, your finance, your substitute system. Any new administrators, they have to know all that, and who's in charge of training them, and what do they need to know for their certain job position.
This is the time of year where most coaches are planning their summer boot camps, and let's not forget, your administrative assistants need to get trained. New administrators need to get trained. So many different things. So we're looking at application-based, we're looking at personnel-based, but there's one more area of the stool that the district is worried about, and that's the district initiatives. So why is this important, and what questions should we be asking around district initiatives?
Well, what's new? What are you trying to implement that I, as a coach, may or may not know about, and probably need to know about from my standpoint, whether it be curriculum or tech? And how do I need to get trained in this, and how do I need to support you? And then existing projects, those existing initiatives, whatever they may be, whether it's a certain testing program and such as that, is how can you continue supporting in the best way possible?
And it's important that you're looking at that from a global point of view. Yes. We all know that our district has certain benchmarks, certain goals, and our job as coaches is to help our district, help our buildings, help our principals, help our teachers meet those goals through the use of digital learning skills and through the use of digital learning tools and technologies. If you know, as an example, that your building is really focused on ELA, if you know your building is really focused on raising MLL or EL scores, or if you know your building's really focusing on raising math score, whatever it happens to be, you can still teach Padlet. You can still teach Google Docs. Absolutely. But make sure that you're focusing those digital learning skills on the initiative at hand. Maybe this year you're showing what can a Google Doc do. Next year you might be needing to do what can a Google Doc do to help a student in writing a paragraph or in solving a math problem. So the digital learning skill, the ISTE standard, that's going to stay the same. But how you're presenting it is everything. Because, so if you walk into a teacher and you're focusing on this, but the teacher is being told that, you're not on the right page. No, so you got to know how to shift your message, and you got to know how to shift your focus. That way you still get across what you need to get across. But maybe instead of English this year, you're doing it in social studies.
Absolutely. It's very important that you're presenting it in a way where they feel like what you are saying is important to what they're doing, or they're going to turn you off pretty quickly.
Especially when it comes to those summertime conversations with the principals, and that just takes us back to next year. What kinds of things will you be looking for when you walk into the classroom? We're going to talk all about those summertime conversations probably in the summertime, so I would imagine. But until then, I hope you guys had a chance to check out this show, listen to this show, take a few notes maybe. And we would love to hear it if you have any extra questions, because I think this is a great part one. And I would love to do a part two to this with your help. If you guys are interested in being on the show, please reach out to us on Twitter at AskTheTechCoach. You can head on over to AskTheTechCoach.com. Don't forget to check out our Instructional Coaches Network. Help us be that 500th coach in our Facebook group. We would love to have you guys a part of our TeacherCast Instructional Coaches Network. And Sue, there's a lot of great stuff happening over the summertime here. I'm looking forward to ISTE. I'm looking forward to these conferences coming up. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to have. It's not that long, Sue, before we hit episode number 200 of this podcast.
I know. We're getting so close. 191. Wow.
We're going to have a little celebration. We might do a live show. We might help some teachers out. We'll never know. Sue, where do we get a hold of you and learn all about the great things happening on Tech Imaginations?
Well, come find me on Twitter at SV314DWS, and over on YouTube, I'm at Susan Vincent's Tech Imaginations.
And of course, you can check out everything over in the TeacherCast Educational Network. We've been making the website change. I just recently changed over all of my jeffbradbury.com stuff. We're doing a little bit of tweaking on all of our different pages here to help you guys make sure that you can find exactly what you need. And you know what? We're getting ready for a big announcement, Sue. I'm hoping that by the time the summertime hits, there is a major, major announcement coming up from this network. But right now, we've got our fingers crossed. I'm going to leave it at that, because I'm hoping that we've got some good stuff to share, some more good stuff to share. But anyway, that wraps up this episode number 191 of Ask the Tech Coach, talking all about the 5 different important and most important conversations you should be having as an instructional coach before the summertime hits. And on behalf of Sue and everybody here on TeacherCast, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classroom and continue sharing your passions with your students.
You've been listening to Ask the Tech Coach, hosted by Jeff Bradbury of the TeacherCast Educational Network. Please reach out to the show with all of your questions on Twitter at AskTheTechCoach or online at www.askthetechcoach.com. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review in the App Store.